So let us bow our heads as we pray before we start our soil fertility and management part 2. Dear Heavenly Father, we thank you, we praise you, we glorify your name because you are worthy to be praised. We are happy that we are alive once more to share, to learn, to be your instruments. Lord, as we come before you, we first ask of you to empty us of self, remove everything that is unlike you in us, that you may be able to speak through us, because ultimately you are the ultimate gardener, the ultimate farmer. So we ask of you to teach us. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen.
Amen. All right. So that's not right here, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So our session for this evening is soil fertility and management part 2. And before we continue, let us tell you a little bit about ourselves. So we are Narrow Life Ministry, and we are established in St. Lucia. Some of the things that we offer, we provide, that we do as a ministry is we have a prayer line every Sabbath morning from 5 a.m. to 7 a.m. And our goal, our mission is to help persons to become more holistically healthy. So that's spiritually, physically, and yes, so this is our aim. And to do that, we believe that you need, of course, to spend time in prayer with God and with each other. This prayer line is for encouragement. So there are testimonies, Bible readings, and songs. It is always a blessing. We also provide country living consultation at all stages of the journey. And this is just to share the things that God has taught us and the things that God is continuing to teach us with families. So especially families who are currently seeking to move out into the country, or those who are already there. It's always good to have somebody else give a different perspective. So this is one of the reasons why we provide those consultations. We have been country living off grid for about 7 years now, and there's so many things that we would love to share that God has taught us. So this is one of the reasons why we provide those services. We also provide property development and planning services as well. This is where we share the development cost of maybe a property that you're seeking, or maybe just to help you plan what you should be doing. Okay. So this is some of the services that we offer. We also provide home construction and furnishing skills. So whatever it has to do with your home, whether it be to build your home from scratch, going all the way up, or it is just for you to provide some of the building skills in home.
Yeah. We've been doing that for how many years now?
We've been doing that for over 20 years now.
Over 20 years now.
Yeah, it's not something that we just started doing. It's for 20 years now, working in the construction area. Yeah. Okay, so we provide outdoor recreation for the development of skills and being comfortable in nature. So we realize that sometimes people don't feel comfortable because they are not accustomed. So when you accustom yourself to being outdoors, this helps you to build your confidence in nature.
And when God blesses us with our own piece of land, we'll be able to do that even better.
Better, yes. So one of the things that we always encourage persons, especially those with older children or with family who don't necessarily understand the country living method, or just a little bit intimidated, we invite you to join us on one of our expeditions, whether it be on a camp, a hike. These things help us to be more comfortable in nature.
COVID kind of slowed that down.
Yes, it did. Yeah. We provide seminars and skills training. So the seminars like this one, and also the skills training soon when we are able to be. So we also provide Bible studies. Now, before, Bible studies were every Thursday evening, but because of the seminar, we have postponed it for now. But we will be back with the Bible studies. We provide families with opportunities for country living. And one of the things that we've realized is that it is sometimes very expensive to find land in St. Lucia, and especially house and land. So we find ideal properties and we share it with families so that they can also be part of this country living journey. We are also excited about the Narroway Jungle Outposts, and this is something that God has placed upon our hearts for since I was the age of 18. I did not know it was an outpost as yet, but as I grew and as I became more knowledgeable, I realized that God was seeking to establish an outpost in St. Lucia. So as of recently, 2019, I believe, no, 2020, we actually got to see the property. God had us planning and buying things for it, even before he had shown us the property. And to now be able to see it, this is a very exciting for us to have seen the property. And next week, we will be sharing with you the testimony for the outpost and also the plan that God has laid before us as what is going to be established in St. Lucia. So we will go into our country living quote for this evening. And it's taken from Letters 5, 1904, and it's also in Selected Messages, Book 2, and in the book Country Living. So I will read. Again and again, the Lord has instructed that our people are to take their families away from the city into the country where they can raise their own provisions. For in the future, the problem of buying and selling will be a very serious one. We should now begin to heed the instruction given us over and over again. Get out of the cities into rural districts where the houses are not crowded, closely together, and where we will be free from the influence of enemies. So in reading this particular quote, one of the things that stands out to us is that there's going to be a problem of buying and selling. And sometimes when I go to the supermarket, even today, I say to myself, looking at these increased prices, maybe we're not at the time of no buying and selling yet, but we're in the time of the problem of buying. It looks like it's going to become a very serious one. Yes. So when we see the prices rising, we're seeing what's happening all around us. We all should be mindful. We should all be in a state of preparedness, in a state of considering what's happening. Similar to a hurricane. If a hurricane is coming, what do? You plan for it. You make sure your shutters are closed properly, that your house is sealed properly. You do some extra groceries if you have to. We have been instructed that something is coming and there's going to be a problem. We won't be able to buy or sell. This is something that tells us that we have to do something about that. And I've told many of my friends, even the non-Seventh-day Adventist friends of mine, wouldn't it just be nice to have something growing even while you're working in the city or doing something else? It's something to consider. Having a piece of land, growing your own food is a wise decision. Okay. The work of the people of God is to prepare for the events of the future. which will soon come upon them with blinding force. What does blinding force mean?
Blinding force. I get that it's unexpected.
It's unexpected. I see a certain level of speed coming too.
Yes, yes. Yeah, blinding. I get that too. So
Yes.
fast that you haven't seen.
So in the world's gigantic monopolies will be formed, and we have already seen some of them. Men will bind themselves together in unions that will wrap them in the folds of the enemy. A few men will combine to grasp all the means to be obtained in certain lines of business. Trade unions will be formed, and those who refuse to join these unions will be marked men. And I know that everybody is being made aware of what is happening in our world. We see persons coming together to form groups that would encourage them to be able to go through the difficult times ahead. So let us be aware of, yes. So let's be aware of what's happening and take the needful steps to go forward. So at this moment, we are going to go into our session for this evening, which is soil fertility and management. So we're going to soil fertility and management.
Guys, I'm not... Okay.
Okay. So
Just pause.
all right. So now we're beginning our session on soil fertility and management.
All right, let's pray. Father, I want to thank you yet again for another opportunity, Lord, that we get to share what you've been showing, what you've been teaching us, Lord. As we share, Lord, we hope that other persons will feel empowered, Lord, to be obedient to your call, and that they'll do it in a way that brings glory to your name, Lord. In just my prayer. Amen. Amen. All right, so soil fertility and management. I guess we can do a fast recap, Mitchell, before we continue.
Oh, yes. So we're going to do a review of what we did in our last session.
For those who were not there.
And for just we're bringing to our remembrance, and then we're going to go into gardening methods. We're going to spend some time in gardening methods. We may not be able to go all the way into the organic fertilizers and waste management, but the gardening methods help you with these as well.
Yes. Yes. So I remember we asked the question, what's dirt?
Yes.
And we discovered that dirt is basically the soil and, well, not the soil, not the minerals, the stuff under your feet. I'll put it that way.
Yes.
So the stone, the sand, the dust, the clay, that's dirt. However, we wanted to find out what it means. We found out there's a difference between dirt and soil, and that it's not wise to try to grow food in dirt. However, it's better for us to grow food in soil, and the soil we learned was rich in nutrients, minerals, microbes, fungi, bacteria that the plants need. Dirt does not have that, and dirt can't help us grow our plants. We understood also that soil fertility is the ability of soil to sustain agricultural plants, i.e. to provide plants habitats and result in sustained and consistent yields of high quality produce. So we saw also that, we saw also that yes, it's possible to grow food in fertilizer because, well, let's get to that. We also look at what a plant needs. So we said plants need nutrients, plants need water, plants need depth. So there needs to be a softness to the soil that the roots can go to a significant depth that a plant needs. Organic matter was very important. And I remember saying, if you forget everything else, never forget to add the organic matter. Need good drainage, it needs aeration because the roots need I'm just a camera. Because the roots need air, or else the soil get anaerobic. It need microorganisms, it need the absence of toxins, and it needs good soil pH. Now there was another thing that came to mind after, but I can't right now because it's been kind of distracting. So I'll do everything now. Okay. So going forward, we said the two most important things that a plant needs is water and light, because without water, nothing lives. Water is the most important nutrient. As a matter of fact, soils can have varying degrees of deficiencies, but you will always be able to find some kind of plants that would grow there. Now, we looked at a lot of deficiency diseases, and we saw that most plants suffer more from deficiency diseases like lack of nitrogen, lack of phosphorus, lack of potassium. We also saw that it is possible to grow plants with their basic needs, basically NPK, nitrogen, phosphorus, potassium. However, to have healthy plants, plants that resist diseases, they would need all the other minerals, all the other nutrients, and they have macronutrients or the primary nutrients, that was the NPK. They have secondary nutrients, that is calcium, manganese, and I'm gonna make magnesium, I still made the same mistake, magnesium and sulfur, and also that plants have micronutrients. Now, the fact that it's called secondary nutrients doesn't mean it's less important. However, the plant needs less of it. And we also have micronutrients, doesn't mean it's not important as well, just means that the plant needs even less of it. And the micronutrients are nickel, iron, manganese, I got this right this time, zinc, copper, boron, molybdenum, 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 I don't know how to pronounce that, and chlorine. All right, so, and I remember saying the very first thing for those who want to have a garden, the plants can show its deficiencies. That's true. The plant can show its deficiencies. However, the most important thing to start a garden is to do a soil test, because we saw that the deficiencies can be quite similar. And you need a very trained eye to know what the deficiencies are based on the plant, but it is possible. However, so a soil test, you need to take a soil sample, I'm writing here with revision, send the sample to a trusted or established laboratory for recommendations. And when they send those recommendations to you, you apply exactly what is recommended. However, we saw that it's also possible to have an option of synthetic, which is not the best, I'll say that, fertilizers, or we could have natural or organic fertilizers, which will biodegrade, which will not toxify your soil, and which will not accumulate, and will not leach into your water system as well, into your runoff, your wells, aquifers, what have you. So the natural, biodegradable, what's the words I can use, organic fertilizers would be best. And the last thing we touched on was soil nutrient cycling. And I remember saying that if you have, I think I said 1,000 grams of nitrogen in the soil, and perchance, hypothetically, the plant use 500, then you now depleted of 500, call it grams of nitrogen. And then you need to then put in this fertility so that your soil can stay fertile, or if you can put in more than it needs, so that soil can become fertile. And we have to keep nutrient cycle in mind to know that if we're taking out, if you harvesting a crop and you're selling off this crop and you're going to sell it, then there needs to be some way to bring back the nutrients. However, crop rotation simply changes the needs, the hierarchy of needs. So then say corn, for example, needs nitrogen more. By doing a crop rotation, you might put a plant that is more dependent on phosphorus, that doesn't put fertility in the soil. It just changes what the plant's primary need is. So then there needs to be a way to bring that soil facility back in. Now, that's enough for the revision. We're going into our session. Now, guys, let's be interactive. You could ask questions, you can make comments. I get to learn as well when people share, because I don't have the authority on farming. What I know is what God has exposed me to, and I'm still being exposed to more information. So please feel free to share. And even if I can't answer the question, at least I know what to go and search on research next. All right, so feel free to share. If the question is too big, still ask it. All right, so I want to look at gardening methods. That's what I want to look at. Gardening methods. That's the very first thing I want to look at. And we'll be sharing a little bit about our journey and what God has been teaching us along the way. Okay, so first, I want to introduce this word to you. It's called agriculture. Now, this is a common word thrown around all over the place. Agriculture is, well, I'll put a definition. Agriculture means the science or practice of farming, including cultivation of soil for the growing of crops and the rearing of animals to provide food, wool, what have you, and other products. All right, so agriculture is basically having the land produce. That's my definition. Having the land produce. Now, within agriculture, there is still so agriculture is basically farming on a large scale as well. I must add that too. With extensive crop cultivation, agriculture is the science of growing food, crop, and rearing animals. However, agriculture kind of has some negative connotations to it. For example, monocropping. Within agriculture, monocropping is very common. Like, for example, in the picture here, when a farmer grows, say that soybean, a soybean farmer is growing soybean, and usually he has no companion plants or anything else to supplement or to bring diversity into the farm. And that's one of the main reasons for pests getting out of control. Because as soon as the pest learns to eat the soybean, guess what else is there to eat? Soybean. So then the pest can multiply and get really good at killing soybean, because that's all there is. It learns really well how to destroy soybean. So that's one of the reasons. And if you watch in the forest, if you copy nature, nature doesn't have that problem. So agriculture, however, is different from horticulture. And horticulture is an art or practice of garden cultivation and management. It's a branch, the branch of plant agriculture dealing with garden crops. So it's like a smaller agriculture, I guess you could call it that. So when you think of agriculture, you think more large scale farming. However, horticulture is more home garden, smaller base, vegetables, ornamentals, what have you. Now within agriculture, there is chemical agriculture, there is chemical fertilizers, and there's synthetic fertilizers. I mentioned that already. So there's things, well, agriculture has chemicals, put it that way. So then chemicals can either be for growth, that's fertilizers, quick fertilizer, whether liquid, solid, powder, whatever, amendments that would fall under fertilizers, and pesticides. That's one helps plants grow and the other protects the plant or animals. So that would be, in the case of animals, that would be the shots, vaccines, whatever immune booster that would be used, all right? But within those, there are natural and synthetic. Now, I want us to look at the farming methods. I need to be able to, I do not see if anybody raised their hand, so just now let me adjust this. Somebody said can't hear. Am I giving on? Yeah. So we're going to look at some gardening methods. That was a long time ago. That is no-till gardening, lasagna gardening, back to Eden gardening, Hügelkultur, permaculture, root stout method, container gardening, aquaponics, square foot gardening, Jadam natural farming or Korean natural farming, and leaf mulching. Now, all these are methods of farming and ways that people, that we add fertility to the soil. All of these are organic methods. So I'm only promoting organic methods of gardening. What just happened? What is happening? Oh man. I don't know what happened to me just now. I'll fix that. Okay. All right. So first I want to look at no-till gardening. How many persons have ever heard of no-till gardening? Only one person has ever heard about no-till gardening? Raise your hands. How many persons have ever heard of no-till gardening? Wow. Okay, all right. So at least that's 2 persons. Wow, that's amazing. All right, well, the idea is that tilling breaks up the soil so that you can quickly plant in loose soil. But the problem is that over time, this loose soil becomes hard or dry or nutrient deficient, or the rain or water also can erode the soil. And it's also said that tilling breaks up the connections in the soil. So then imagine the idea is that you have your home. Well, the microbes have their home, they build a house, they build their roads, they run their power lines, the internet, the cable, because they do communicate. And when you till the soil, you're breaking up all of this, you're killing some of the microbes, and you're causing damage to the microbial activity or the relationships between the microbes in the soil. So what you can do in no-till gardening, you cover the soil. Well, I guess if you're starting grass, or you could use cardboard to put over the ground. I've heard of no-dig garden. Yes, no-dig, no-till is the same idea. Yes. So the idea is you try to not disturb the soil. You allow nature to take care of itself. However, you take care of the top surface. You try to mimic the forest, because in nature, in the forest, nobody tills, and however the plants still grow. So you, instead of pulling out plants, instead of like after the harvest, you just cut the top of it, you leave the roots in the ground. When the root dies, then that will provide pathways for water. As the root decomposes, the microbes can have their way, can eat it. So in no-till gardening, I miss you, baby. I miss you. I have no idea. I'm nothing without you. Thank you for coming. So in no-till gardening, you use, I was mentioning you cover the soil with cardboard, that's to suppress the weeds, and use whatever you have to cover the soil. Now we're going to get into more detail between the different kinds of no-till gardening. However, I must say initially that you can save money that way. There is a reduction in water use because the soil is covered, there's less evaporation. You use less herbicide or weedicide, I should have added, because the soil is covered. The weed seeds never get light, so they would not germinate. Okay, and you could also have higher yields because you have a better, more nourishing kind of soil. Okay. However, the disadvantages of no-till gardening is that you may need special equipment depending on which one you use. For example, with wood chips, but we'll get to that in a while. Fields can become more susceptible to fungal diseases because of the amount of moisture that the soil would now hold, but that too can be managed. See, I break a sweat without it really. And it takes a long time sometimes. Some of the methods, it can take a long time for the things you cover the soil with to now decompose and provide you with the nutrients that you need. And the other thing too is that fields can be used for multiple purposes because those beds get locked into whatever you predetermine them to be. And the first method I want to introduce you in no-till gardening is the back to Eden method. Somebody has heard about this method, right? No, and
So how many persons have heard of the back to Eden gardening? I'm expecting to see a little bit more hands there.
yeah, and guys, y'all have me all day by myself.
Okay, how many persons have seen the? All right, okay.
Yeah.
All right, okay,
Yeah.
I'm seeing some more hands there. Yes.
This was the garden method we knew of before we moved country living. Now imagine how empowered I felt. I never really understood it. Now I know I never understood it, but I felt so empowered when you're going country living because back to Eden. Oh, I love the name. It's back to Eden garden. So all we have to do is whatever this guy said, and then we're gonna grow food in abundance. However, we didn't know that it wasn't sawdust or wood or wood chips from, say, for example, a joinery shop. Like wood chips that had no leaves, no bark. We didn't know that. So we went to Sephora with all the wood chips that we had from the joinery shop, expecting abundance, and it didn't work out in our favor. So this back to Eden method, the guy in the picture, his name is Paul Gauchi. Paul Gauchi, he's the one that's, yeah. So he's the one that pioneered this gardening method. So if you're in a place where they have people that service trees, arborists servicing trees, cutting, tilling, and they own a wood chipper, it'd be good to make friends with them at least. So then you can have them drop off the wood chips by you, so that you can start back to Eden gardening. So yeah, sorry.
One of the things I'd like to say is one of the ways that you can tell or you can know if a gardening method is for you or if it is something that will work is go and take a look at nature. For example, the first method, where it's no-till, do we notice that in nature? Yes, we do. We notice that there are some times where
not sometimes.
well, nature doesn't till. The animals can till for you, but naturally in a forest, you don't see any tilling. So you have to pay attention to make sure your gardening method, you have seen it in nature before you go about practicing.
So instead of making compost and applying it to the soil, you put on the wood chips, and those wood chips need to be branches, end of branches. So they would have green leaves in them, nitrogen, and would have wood in there as well. That would be your carbon source. And it's basically a compost pile. It takes about 3 years before you really start seeing results. But with this method, if you put in down a thick enough layer of wood chips, you may not need the cardboard layer to cover the soil. But it's one way of having fertility because every time it rains, the nutrients from the wood chips would seep down into the garden and you'd get fertility. Now, I noticed in this picture I put up there, they did not cover the road as well with wood chips. They left the pathways uncovered. I would cover all of it because those pathways there, but I guess it also depends on how much material you have. Yeah, but those pathways here would also need protection because they would need maintenance for weeds, and those pathways would cause a lot of evaporation. So what you can do is use your best wood chips on your garden, and you could go to a joinery shop and find sawdust, wood shavings, and use them for the roads, and that's what we do. Okay, so one of the equipment that you would need in that back to Eden method, especially if you can't get tree service in your, if there isn't any tree service in your area, you could get yourself a wood chipper. And this is the wood chipper we plan on buying when God blesses us with the finances. This one is also used by people who actually do tree service, so it's quite powerful. There's a bigger one, but this is the one we're getting sometime in the future. So that's one of the equipment.
Tools,
yeah, that's, remember I said with organic farming, there might be specialty tools. So then that would be the specialty tool that you would need to do that kind of gardening. All right, so let's look at advantages. Oh, any questions, guys, before I go advantages and disadvantages?
Yeah, back to Eden gardening.
Any questions, guys? Who have tried it, who hasn't tried it? Any questions? Okay, no questions, I guess.
I have not tried it, but I have been longing to try.
Yeah.
Yeah. You have wood chipper?
Unfortunately not.
Yeah.
I wish I knew somebody who does. Well, I kind of know somebody who does, but yeah. So that's the one I recommend for my family. Yeah, that wood chipper, and we would surely be doing that because there isn't a limitation to your sources of fertility when you have a wood chipper, for example. I mean, bamboo, you could actually grow some plants that are high in certain nutrients just to chip them and put them onto your garden, especially like glory cedar.
So one of the things that I would add before we take the other hands is that we do see in nature wood chipping. Whenever a tree or a leaf falls, it breaks down.
Or the dry branches break as well.
Or they break. What we're doing with a wood chipper is just speeding up the
Yes,
process.
yes.
So, yes. But I see some hands, so we're going to take them. Judith, go ahead.
Yes, good evening. Thanks. I just wanted to pass on what I experienced. I don't want to be rude, but this time of year in America, down here in Alabama where I live, we gather up people's bags of leaves. They've done all the work, they've raked it, they've bagged it. And what we did, because I believe in the no-till also, and we just emptied it on the soil, just a whole bag, just real thick, like 6 inches to a foot. And the next year, that stuff had broken down black, like close to the soil, and the soil was so soft. So I just wanted to share that with you.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. We actually do the same. So we have, especially when I worked at a particular estate, we would go in there and they'd rake up all the leaves
and they would burn them, or they would leave them in a pile forever. So I would go and I would make thousands of trips if I have to. I'd carry all of them in the jeep that we have and bring them into our garden.
Yep. And it does well for the soil. It keeps the moisture in and it breaks down and gives you good soil. So I see another hand that is Nell.
Helen.
Hello, Helen. Okay.
You have the thing. It's all right. It's all right.
Sorry.
Okay. Someone introduced me to the no-till idea some time ago, and I was excited about it. I was not exposed to sources to get wood chips, but what I did when the grass was more than clippings and any waste material from the garden and also fruit skins, etc. I will put it and make a bed on top of the garden. So I kind of tried it in one bed.
Okay.
So I will take all the stuff that I would have had and tried in one bed. And I did some cabbages and they were beautiful. They were big. I actually had traffic stopping and people wanting to know, what did you put on those cabbages? And I said, like, nothing, it's just the stuff. And people couldn't believe because they are accustomed to the fertilizers thing.
Yes.
But and what was interesting, the cabbage was extremely big. There was no worms. And I didn't really have to water much, as you're saying. So I tried it in one bed. It actually did work. But the only challenge I had with the method I used, seeing that I was using grass and clippings from any source, After a while, I started getting a lot of weeds.
Yes.
That's the downside
To using
to-
the
yeah. The only thing, put more. If you put more, as long as the weed seeds can't get light, then they will not be able to germinate. So if you have added more. However, if it gets to a point where they have too much weed, just start all over. Layer of cardboard and to smother the weeds. And then you add your grass clippings. But you were talking about a different method though. We'll get to that method.
Oh, I didn't use any cardboard. I just used the stuff that I had, and I just laid it over the bed.
Okay. Yeah.
One of the things that we do as well is whenever we use the grass, we actually grow certain grasses
We'll get to that just now.
for that purpose. In the chat, somebody was asking, can you dig the wood chips into the soil if not using the no dig method? So can you dig the wood chips into the soil?
So we're getting to this now. So let's do advantages and disadvantages, and we kind of cover that in there.
Okay.
So one good thing about this method is one, it creates humus. So the soil keeps getting better because you're feeding the soil. With chemical fertilizers, you're actually feeding the plant. The soil doesn't improve in any way. But with this method, you're actually improving the soil. So the soil gets more humus. The weed seeds get starved of light. You may have weed seeds that germinate, but even then it will be easy to take them out because of the moisture that's in the soil, the amount of worm, the amount of life that's in the soil, it will be easy to pull out most of those weeds that come up. You'll have nutritionally dense food because you have this wide spectrum of nutrients and you have this wide amount, this range of food that you feed into those microbes in the soil. They'll be happy. Let me tell you, they'll be taking care of you. They'll be working on your behalf. Remember, the sister said that the soil was soft. It's because of all the activity that is happening in the soil. Yes. Now it is less work because after applying those the wood chips, you do not have to constantly be adding fertilizer, tilling, but I kind of there. You don't have to be. It's a lot less work. You don't have to carry as much water because you need actually less water because all those wood chips act like sponges trapping in the water. They act like a covering for the soil, preventing evaporation. So it has moisture retention. There's no need for fertilizer. However, you could still amend based on the recommendations of your soil test. You could still amend, and it also prevents erosion because when the rain at high speed hits the soil, if you check it up on YouTube, it's almost like a meteorite hitting the ground. There's these little explosions, and the soil particles get trapped in the water. And when the rain falls really heavily, they wash down. So you'll be losing fertility. However, if the wood chips, yes, and the roots and the high phase networks actually create a web and they cover the soil and they protect the soil. So the disadvantages is finding sufficient material. That is one of the disadvantages, but if you're really clever, if you're really creative, then you could maybe find it. Another disadvantage of wood chip method is that it can encourage termites. Depending on what wood you use, it can encourage termites. It takes at least 3 years to be well established, possibly increasing slugs because of the moisture, but that can still be dealt with. Difficult to direct sow. I guess that is based on what you kind of used to. But you could still direct sow, mind you. You may have to push away the wood chip layer, direct sow into the soil, and then bring the wood chips back after the plant has sprouted. And you cannot plow the wood chips. You can't plow it because mixing wood chips with the soil would cause the soil to deplete in nitrogen. It takes nitrogen to break down. For things to rot, it takes nitrogen. And by mixing it in the soil, it would bind up the soil with the wood chips, and you would have a major nitrogen deficiency, among other things that just don't come to mind right now. So disadvantage, you cannot plow in the wood chips. So there's another method that you can plow, and that's called the leaf mulching method. And that's what,
Lincoln, before you
yes.
go there, another reason why it wouldn't be wise to mix the wood chip with the soil, it takes longer for the process to for the wood to break down, and so
yes,
it will take longer for you to get the desired results.
yes, yes, yes. And you kind of want to feed the soil top down with the wood chip method. You want the rain to bring in the nutrients with the wood chip method. But thank you for that, bro. Yeah. So then the other method is the leaf mulching method. So instead of wood chips, we use leaves or leaf mulch, and that's what we did. We went. We used to go to the place when she was working. She didn't say the name, so I said the name here. And we would collect leaves. However, we had no way of shredding the leaves, so we just put them directly in the bed. And now, when we say leaf mulch method, we're not talking about, say, leaf barely covering the soil. We are talking about maybe about a foot, 6 inches to a foot of leaves, something significant amount of leaves. So it can be a method. Other than that, it's just leaf mulching. But you don't want leaf mulching as a method where those leaves degrade and become leaf mulch, which is its own thing, covered with hyphates. You'd see a lot of white fibers moving through there. That's a good sign. That's like the internet of the soil, you see. And you can mulch your plants. It works just like the wood chip method or the back to Eden method, but it's a faster method because the leaves break down faster than the wood. And the wood without the leaves kind of doesn't work as well. So the leaves are really the main resources here, because the plant would have taken its energy from the soil, put it in through the stem, and would have placed them in the leaves of the plant. And then when those leaves fall, is the cycle of nutrients happen all again. So in nature, this happens all the time.
If you notice, that's why we have fall and spring.
Yeah, that's why we have fall and spring, in case you guys didn't know. It's one way of protecting the soil and the life in the soil from the frost. Because the frost, and for the fertility into the ground. I see a hand.
Yes, two things. Sometimes when Mitra speaks, we don't hear it clearly because she's probably a little bit away from the mic. And I have a question. How long after you apply the 6 inches to 1 foot of leaves, how long after would you be able to plant, or would you be able to plant in between?
You can plant it instantly. It's faster than the back to Eden or the wood chip method. With that method also, you can plow in the leaves. When we did it, I plowed. We have tried many methods already. Yeah? So I plowed in the leaves with a little bit of manure. So I spread the leaves, spread the manure over them, and I plowed them in. And this is like some of the best garden we've ever had, because it's like a compost pile. Because it doesn't have the wood, and because I added the manure, it has the extra nitrogen that it needs to break down everything. So it worked really well for us. So it's instant. So it works instantly. This is one of the best results I ever had. Tilling in the wood chip. And it's actually my preferred method of gardening, to till in the leaves, sorry, not wood chips. Yeah, tilling the leaves.
So you have me now. You have me now looking to go and harvest leaves.
Bro, I harvest leaves listen to me. You know the guys that cut the grass by the road? Anytime I'm driving by, I always tell the Lord, why don't give me a van? Anytime I'm driving by and see those guys cutting and they have them in the bags already, I'd go with it. I would have to actually take out the plastics and throw the plastic. That's how much we get into that.
And sometimes what we do, especially for the grasses, we would leave it to compost a little bit before we apply it.
Let me tell you my secret. There's a particular church in St. Lucia. I will not say the name because that's my resource. I don't usually get it. There's a particular church in St. Lucia. It's an Adventist church. And every time they cut the grass, they put the leaves in the same spot. And I go in that spot and I take the leaves, and under it have some really nice black compost. That so then I go there, I take full my bags, and I'm out. The people that know what I'm talking about know what I'm talking about. Yeah, so yeah. When you understand that soil cycle, nutrient
Recycling.
cycling, you see everything as a resource because you actually just taking those nutrients and put it back. And the beautiful thing about taking resources or leaves from other places is that you may have a deficiency of one nutrient, but the other place may not have that nutrient deficiency. So the leaves you take from another spot would fill in the blank or the missing link in your soil deficiencies, whatever. I don't know what to say. So with this method, you would need specialty tools to do it really well, to speed up the process, to make it happen really fast. Don't mind the brand, guys. That's just my favorite brand. Sorry. You would need, if you want to speed up the process, then you would need a leaf blower a leaf vacuum that can mulch. So with this leaf vacuum, it can blow the leaves away. That's what most people use the vacuum for. However, the vacuum can also suck in, and some of them have a leaf crusher in them where they would break the leaves apart and store it in the bag, and you have instant leaf mulch.
Okay, so somebody had a question. What about if you add you transfer harmful microbes from the other place to your soil by collecting things from many other places?
That has never been my concern. I will not be my concern about harmful microbes, because when the problem with harmful microbes is when they are the majority. If the harmful microbes are the minority, then the beneficial will take care of them.
So it's like living in a healthy environment.
Yeah, in a healthy environment. The one fuck that comes there, we're not afraid of you, bro. We gotta get rid of you.
Yeah.
All right. But if you live in a ghetto where there are more thugs than you, then you just have to be quiet and say nothing. Yeah. So then when you have a nice ecosystem, and you feed the soil well, the soil will do everything it can to bring itself into balance. However, if that really is an issue, then you could compost the leaves, and the composting method will take care of whatever harmful toxins that's in there. It will neutralize the toxins. But thanks for that question. So advantages and disadvantages, love. You want to do that?
There is for the advantages.
Well, it says the same thing.
It creates a lot of the humus, the networking. And if you go into the forest and you look at it, there's sometimes these white little web things that you see on the leaves or on the ground.
The hyphae.
These things is one of the things that you will notice in your garden when you use this method.
And that's a good thing to notice in your garden.
You're starving the weeds from light, so you have less weeds to do it.
As a matter of fact, gardening is discouraging to most people because of weeding. Most people wouldn't mind gardening, except they wouldn't want to do weeding. So this is one of the ways that you can take control of the weeds even before they come up.
Yeah, so that's less work for most people. Yeah. There's also the moisture retention. And there is no need for fertilizer. Like I said, if you're consistent and you keep adding from different areas, you can have. The adding from different areas, you're still supposed to be mindful. You try your best not to go into areas that is susceptible to maybe fertilizer farming or
chemicals.
Yeah.
Bleach,
so you try your best.
Oil, vehicle oil, these kind of things. You try and keep away from that.
So that's why with us, with the leaves my husband used to take, it was an estate that we used to work at. So
well, what was happening there?
Yeah, and the fact that it's an estate, it's a lot of organic. It's just the trees that's taking care of itself. So we were aware that it was a healthy place to take it from. Yeah. So one of the things that is advised is go to your nearest forest or your nearest area that is left alone to nature, and you can harvest your leaves and stuff from there.
So I see that they have basically the same advantages. However, I see one disadvantage that's different is that you can get skin irritation, rash, or allergic reaction to the leaves, depending on what leaves they are. So, for example, poison ivy or some poisonous tree, you can maybe get a skin irritation. It wouldn't affect the plants though, but if you have sensitive skin, then you should be aware of what leaves they are, or just be aware of how you handle them.
Yes. Okay, so question. Sometimes the grass clippings get mildew. Why is that?
Grass clippings get mildew. If they bind, if there's not enough air between the grass clippings, you notice that where I'm not sure that's mildew, however, but they would bind, they'll get matted, and because they would become anaerobic. Basically, if you notice when that happens, the grass clippings are usually matted. So then you just need to put air back into the mix, and then that will take care of itself. So the other method we want to look at is, first we look at wood chips, then we look at grass clippings. Now we're going to look at the roof stout method. And it was called the root stout method from why? Who knows why it was called the root stout method? If anybody knows about this method. Roof stout, sorry. Anybody ever heard of roof stout method? Show of hands. I guess not. So the roof stout method was named after the lady Ruth Stout. She was passionate about organic gardening. She spent her life learning and adapting her gardening techniques to find the perfect method. She understood soil fertility and how nature plays a huge part in building and amending soil. And she took this knowledge and created the roof stout gardening method. And it's a simple method. Simply, you take cardboard. Usually the cardboard is simply for weed suppressing. If the place already has grass or grass or something growing there, you simply just flatten it out or cut it, leave it right there, cover it with cardboard. So those leaves, those grasses would then decompose, make more nutrient for your soil. And then you add in a layer of hay or grass clippings, usually dried though, or grass, a thick layer of grass clippings or grass. So the root stout method predominantly uses spoiled hay as mulch. A generous application of hay smothers the weed. It retains moisture, it fertilizes the soil, and grows healthy plants, leaving no work in the garden aside from sowing seeds and harvesting your crop. That's basically all the work you have. You have no weeding to do, no fertilizing to do, and you just sow your seeds. Well, you just kind of have to take care of them and you harvest your crop. So it's a wonderful method, especially for those that can't get hay. There was something else that came to mind.
It's the same principle as
Yes, it's the same principle of putting nutrient cycling, putting back what you took out, not throwing away, because what we normally do, we sometimes take everything and burn it, and then we add, or we don't add anything and we garden, and the garden does well for a while, but over time the soil depletes and the plants struggle to survive. However, if we understand nutrient cycling by putting back material on, the plant harvested those nutrients, stored it in itself, stored it in the leaves, died, so then those nutrients can cycle back. So we just speed up nature by finding it and taking from different sources and putting it back on. So this is a wonderful method. I know people grow really good, what's that name? No, potatoes. I know people grow really good potatoes in that method. And for those of us who do not have, grow really good potatoes in that method. Those of us who do not have hay, we have vetiver. I don't know what's the English name for vetiver, guys. I don't know the English name. Who knows the English name for vetiver? It doesn't come to mind right now.
Oh, what's on your phone? Look here. At the last time I want to come pick back them clothes.
Okay, so one of the other things that the hay does not have seeds.
No.
So
and
this
that's
is another way you can know what other things you can use if you don't have hay.
So that's why I'm recommending the vetiver, because the vetiver doesn't have seeds. I don't know the English name. If somebody knows the English name, please put in the chat. Check if it's in the chat live. So then remember we did terrain gardening, contour gardening. So you would farm it on contour. On the outer bands of the bed, you could plant your line of vetiver, or your line of lemongrass is another one that doesn't have seeds. and then you could just cut, you would control the erosion of the soil, and you could also just cut them and just add them back onto the bed. So your resource is right there. You don't have to go somewhere else. You don't have to hike, walk, carry, transport. You could just have them on the outside of the beds, cut them, put them on, and you have nutrient cycling right there in your garden. And the beautiful thing about the vetiver also is that somebody told me it inhibits nematodes. So it prevents nematodes from spreading. And there was something else. It has deep roots. So then it would harvest a lot of nutrients deep down in the soil, bring it up to the surface, and then you add it back onto the soil. So like right there, you have your own nutrient cycle in one little spot. Is that right? Mm-hmm. Okay. So that would be the root stout method. And I'll just go through the same, I guess. Basically the same. Yeah, basically the same. Yeah.
The leaf mulching and the leaf mulching
and the wood chips.
The wood chips and the even.
Now what I don't know if everybody noticed that by now, but what these organic methods are, and this is the bottom line of organic methods, is being able to take anything that biodegrades and bring it back to the soil so that you can harvest the nutrients that's in it for your garden, and you wouldn't have to buy chemicals. And the plants actually need less pesticides when they are happy and healthy. So the hybrid to that is the lasagna garden method. Makes me hungry already, love. Yes. Yes, Sister Daisy, I see your hand. Go ahead.
Yeah, question. You talk about the grasses, like the vetiver. I wish I knew the name. I'd call it hay. You talk about the grasses, you talk about the lemongrass. How do the fruit skins and fruit skins and stuff like that, how do they compare? Would you say one is better than the other, or one should be used and the other should not?
Okay. Well, we're just looking at methods. So then where the fruit skin would fit in that method, if you want to stick to the method by the book, because you can't tweak it, mix different methods together and make your own style. But if you're going by the book, where the fruit peelings and all these other things would fit in is in your compost pile. And with all these methods we have mentioned so far, you could still add compost to it. However, by the book, the method is the wood chips and the method is the leaves. But yes, if you're organic farming gardening, organic gardening, your grass clippings, your wood chips, your leaves can still be composted and added to the soil. All right. And within the lasagna method, that's a special place where that comes in. All right. So the lasagna garden is quite simple and quite elegant. Like the picture, there looks kind of elegant. Yeah. Similar to like making a lasagna, making pasta. That's where it got its name from. It actually looks like like making a lasagna, because the whole point is layers. Okay, this garden method does not require any digging or tilling. And turns kitchen scraps, garden waste, newspapers, everything into rich soil for your garden. All right. So lasagna garden builds soil from the ground up, which means you don't have to deal with breaking through hard rock. So if you're in a place where they have really hard rock and you're like, oh Lord, how is there? You give me, I can't do anything with this. I cannot grow food there, or people tell you can't grow food there, then the lasagna method is surely a good method, because it really doesn't even need the soil beneath it. It's like growing food in compost. And I have a picture that demonstrates it. Now, the picture is kind of posh, because that picture have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16 layers. But you realize in the picture, those layers are repeated. So the picture, I kind of had to cut it to be able to stack all of it so that you could read it. So the picture on the left is where it starts. So you start with your grass and you cover it with newspaper or cardboard. I prefer cardboard more than newspaper. Newspaper, you have to have a really thick layer of newspaper for the grass not to come up. And some grasses can be quite resilient and they can come up, and they would be quite happy grasses when they come up because they have a lot of nutrients in them. So you kind of want to use cardboard. So we go to the supermarket and we take, they have the places that they store the boxes, and we kind of speak to them already. So as soon as they see me going in the back, they kind of know what they're going there for. And we take a lot of the cardboard that they have. The only thing is you have to move the plastic or the staples and the scotch tape, because those things don't degrade. And let me tell you, you don't want to be plowing or harvesting and harvesting plastic. So that will take the plastic out. So then you start with the grass, add your cardboard, then you edge manure, and it's best to have edge manure to prevent your plants from burning. Wood chips.
You said that a little quickly.
Yes.
Why do you need edge manure?
It's best to have edge manure because it would not burn your plants. All right. The edge manure is more balanced in its pH levels, and it's So then now, if you watch, the Lasagna method is a hybrid because it has the manure, it has the chopped leaves from the leaf mulching, it has spit moss, it has grass clippings, chopped leaves. But in stacking, you want to stack green layer, brown layer, green layer, brown layer, just like making a compost pile. Basically, you're making a compost pile, and you grow it food directly into it. So then, peat moss, grass clippings, straw, bone meal, that's a soil amendment. That's ground out bones for calcium, I guess. Grass trimmings, peat moss, soil, because soil have the microbes in it already. However little that it has, it will thrive in there. Chopped leaves, and if you have it, you could add compost to them. Now you do not need all these layers, I must say. You just need green layer, brown layer, green layer, brown layer.
To get the best result.
Yes, but this is, and I see a hand there, so I'm gonna take the hand.
Yes, question. When the layers start to decompose, would that result in the heat going lower down? And if your plant is higher up, what happens when the heat start going down?
Yes, it does. Wow, that's pretty observant. Yes, it does shrink down. It's also recommended when you're doing the lasagna method that you actually press down on the bed, because it will break down and it will shrink. But if there's enough of a brown layer in there, the shrinking will be less. If you have a lot of green, and I say green means nitrogen, brown usually means carbon. So if there's a lot of nitrogen, if there's more nitrogen than carbon, then it shrink even more, because the carbon is more the structure and the food. So then yes, it will shrink. You do not have to have a high stack like the picture. You could spread over a wide area. So then yes, it can fall. The heat.
My concern is what happened to your plants when it starts falling.
Yeah, well, you could stake the plants. You could also add stakes to the plants if that's
okay.
A concern. Yeah.
Right.
You could also stick the plants, but yes, it's a possibility for the plants to fall because the roots would be more loose. Yeah.
Right.
So then I guess what would do best in that is the shorter crops would do best in that. Your turnips, your pumpkin, your beets, yeah. So your root crop would do best in that. Put it that way. Yes, Brother Ronnie.
Yes, Lincoln Mitra. Linking to the previous question. With the lasagna garden layer, how soon would you put seeds or seedling in there? Would you instantly with
the
everything
same
in
day
there?
you put it together?
You just have to dig.
Yeah.
So it's like you creating a little
hole. You could create a little hole in there. I must also add that you still have to plant in the soil. You still have to plant in the soil. You don't plant in the So you just pull apart. I forgot to add that part. Thanks for the question.
So what we do, we pull apart so we create a hole, basically, just enough for you to see the plant. And as the plant grows, you allow the things to go around.
Yeah. Now this picture here is kind of over embellished because the layers are really thick, but it's just to make the point that the layers are so thick. Yeah. So
and what happens to when you water it? It goes down a little bit too.
It's like growing directly in compost. The heat is not a problem. The microbes love the heat. The plants also love the heat as well. The heat is not a problem. Cold soil is more damaging to the plants than having the heat in the soil.
Yeah. But one of the things that I like about this particular method is when you plow, for example, wood chips. Yeah. So if you plow wood chips into your soil directly, you know it's going to deplete your nitrogen. But with this particular method, you're adding the layer of what is going to be depleted. So that's why you need the green, the brown, the green, the brown, because the green would add the nitrogen that the brown breaking down would create.
Yeah, it's possible to still plow this. However, by plowing it, you're kind of exposing some of the weed seeds back to the surface. And as long as the weed seeds get light, they would germinate. So kind of, yes, you get the fertility, but you also get nice fertile grasses as well.
Yeah.
Also, the more fertile your soil is, the less grasses you have. My garden, I weed it and it stays without weeds in it for a long time.
Yeah. Because
the nature doesn't feel the need to solve a problem, because that's why we get grasses in our garden. It's because there's a lack. The nature feels like I need to correct a problem, so it's gonna grow grasses in your garden. But with those methods, you have less grass, a lot less grass, and you can still mulch the pathways as well to keep the moisture down. Is hand still up or you put it up again? Sam, is your hand still up or you put it up again?
Sorry, I will lower it, but there's a question in the chat.
Yes, sorry.
Okay. Let me so somebody was asking, can I arrange this method now in the fall in preparation for the spring?
This is actually ideal way to do it. So you prepare your lasagna. This person kind of sounds knowledgeable, but thanks for reminding me to say that. You could prepare your lasagna garden bed. You could cover it with you don't even have to cover it, but if you want, you can cover it with landscape fabric. That's an extra cost. You don't have to cover it. And by the time fall comes around, let me tell you, you'll have black gold under the snow. So then yes, you can. It's actually ideal to do it that way. So it would have broken down. It's basically the composting on the bed. No need to carry it or till it or turn it. It happens right there. So that is ideal to have it on the bed and to have it over winter. And what you may find as well is that there isn't as much snow over it because the heat that it would generate would melt some of the snow.
Oh yeah, I think there was a family who actually tried this particular method, and after winter, you just have to put your seed in.
Yeah, sorry, they were still able to grow kale during the winter because of that method. The stay was covered in snow, but as happy as can be.
Yeah.
And it's growing this.
So it's a good method too.
Question.
Yeah.
What thickness would you say the layers should be about?
That's a good question. I say layers should be at least 3 inches thick, at least 2 to 3 inches thick. But you can have it thinner than that, but overall thickness should be at least a foot. That's what I'd say. Overall thickness should be at least a foot or more.
When you're looking at all the layers.
Yes, all the layers, yeah. So then you could have many thin layers stacked on each other. That's what I'm saying. Instead of having one thick layer of green and another thick layer of brown, you want to stack them because the miracle happens in the relationship and the activity between the green and the brown. And you want the microbes and the worms and your life to have a reason to go up, down, turn around, spin around, and bring in air and mix in the nutrients. And yes, so you want that to happen. I see another hand, Galaxy tab A.
Yeah, that's more curious. I'm just looking at I had my name earlier on, but I went to the tab
Okay.
Because I want to move along with it. I'm looking at the ratio between the green and the brown layers in terms of volume. From what I've understood, maybe you can correct me on that it's a 1-to-4. So you would probably need greater of the brown than the green, if my memory serves me well. I just want to verify that. So it's not just a question of the layers, but there's a volume ratio, which is 1-to-4, the nitrogen to the carbon.
Okay.
Yeah, that's ideal. However, you don't have to bust your head or fight over that.
Okay.
But for best results, yes. But you do not have to measure every bit, because nature is more random than anything else. So yes, it's good to have the right balance, but do not let that discourage you. Let me say that way instead. Don't let that discourage you. You can, as long as you have sufficient green and brown layers, you will get results.
Yeah,
okay?
I think it. Yeah, thanks so
It
much.
might not be the best results, but you will get results. Let me put it that way instead.
Yeah,
you just do not want more green than brown. I'll put it that way. If you have more green than brown, then it can kind of become well, not imbalanced so much. It can kind of become anaerobic.
You'll have more nitrogen than carbon.
Yeah, so it can become anaerobic and it cannot heat up with good balance. Yeah, so then yes, you want to be mindful of that, but don't let that stop you, because I make compost and I totally there's also no rules composting and there's also no rules lasagna gardening. Where you put in what you have.
Yeah, well, I do that
layer,
too.
you add in an organic layer, is what you have, is what you put. So then so then there's also that as well.
Thanks, man.
Yeah. Yeah. So advantages and disadvantages of lasagna gardening is similar. Availability of materials is a big one. Pests is also another, because if you would have fruits, maybe fruits in there, maybe chicken bone or what have you, then that would encourage rats and other pests to want to dig their way in. And if you have that next to your potatoes, then you kind of see where that's going. You're actually attracting the rats to eat your potatoes. So having it stay a little while before you use it is a good method. But let me tell you, you can grow food in it right away. Just watch what you put it in there. If it's gonna attract critters. Critters is the word. Yeah, I can use the word critters. Another method that can incorporate all of them, maybe not the wood chip method, because but with regards to the leaf mulching and all that, is container gardening. And who can tell me who would benefit the most from container gardening? There's one group of persons, I will just do that. Who can benefit the most from container gardening?
Maybe ladies.
Beg your pardon?
The ladies.
The ladies, maybe.
The ladies love it the most, though.
Yeah.
The ladies love it the most, but everybody can benefit from container gardening, especially those who do not have land.
Yeah.
Yes, especially those who do not have land, they can benefit the most from container gardening. And really, the limitation of container gardening is your imagination. All right, your imagination is your limit. Yeah, and I have something written there. No such thing as waste. Don't you remember that song?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I can ask you that. So then, your imagination is the limit to container gardening, and what it provides you is the ability to learn. You learn how to grow food. You learn how to test different methods. You have all different size containers, and when the Lord does provide you that land, guess who have a garden from day one?
Yeah.
You have a garden from day one, because all you have to do is take those things, put it on the truck, put it on the train, whatever, and you can move with your garden. And your limitation is your creativity with this gardening method. And you can still do lasagna gardening in the shoes. You can still do leaf mulching. You can still buy what's the word? Well, not peat moss. You can buy in the bag. He said the name the last time.
I didn't look.
Yeah.
But one of the things I like about
you buy soil. I put that way.
One of the things I like about this method is it gives you the opportunity of experimenting many different methods.
Yes.
So you can try out, even before you even try it in your beds, you try it out in your containers to see which method works best for you, and you can add it to your soil.
And when the Lord provides the land, you can still have them in the container. And the other thing you can do, you can rearrange your garden to suit whatever you feel like without disrupting the plants, having to pull them out of the garden. The worst thing is you have something planted in one area and then you realize, no, it's troubling me, or it's getting too big and you may want to shift it and might have to lose the entire plant just because you don't like where it's growing. But in the container gardening, you can move them without disrupting the plant. Oh, I see a hand. Yes, Sister Daisy.
Yeah, from my knowledge of gardening, when you're planting in containers, you need to put holes under them.
Yes.
I am looking at those boots. How do you get the holes?
A hot piece of iron. You just have a hot piece of iron and you push holes through the boots. So then that's, so in the picture over there, the other picture, they took the covers out of the bottle, but they stuck them in a way that when you water the top, if it's too much water, it goes to the bottom and it keeps going through. So then, yes, that's the one thing you have to be mindful of with container gardening, but you can add the holes with a hot iron, a hot nail, a drill. You can put those holes in there. I actually have a picture of somebody using a jeans pants. I didn't put it up. Using a jeans pants and using it as a container for gardening. Yeah, so then if the container doesn't have holes, you can put in the holes. Yeah, but it's important to know that it needs holes.
So some of the advantages are there's no limit in the size. You can be moved, it can be moved around. They're great for persons who rent, like somebody was saying. Great for managing weeds as well, very good. And of course, availability of materials is whatever you have.
And the other thing that I just came to my mind there, it can be an income because it's so easy to sell a plant that's in a container.
Yeah.
You won't have to dig it up. It's a time.
I want to hear you pronounce that one.
Oh, that's a nice, that one I can pronounce. There's the other nutrient, I can't remember, that one I can pronounce. That one is called Hügelkultur.
Before you move to that one, Lincoln, I noticed you have not one single disadvantage to container.
I couldn't think of one, my brother.
How about
think of one?
How about some container materials may be toxic?
Oh,
I didn't think of that.
Exactly.
I didn't think of that. Yes, yes. Some containers, yes. Or some containers may biodegrade too.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yes. Right. Yeah. But let me tell you, I couldn't think of one at that time. Yeah. So that word is called Hügelkultur. Who has ever heard about Hügelkultur? Oh, I saw it just now. Ronnie has his hand.
Yes. Since Sam mentioned some materials that are harmful. I know there's the tradition of using old tires for container planting, and I've heard some negative reviews along those lines as well. What is your take on that?
Well, I don't know. Rubber is can biodegrade. Rubber is biodegradable. I really don't know. I don't know. I do it. I have things growing in tires, and that's one way to slow down erosion on steep slopes. You could stack tires on the steep slope. But
you don't grow. I don't think we grow a lot of things in it.
No, we don't. We don't.
So it leaves room for the plant to push its roots down.
Yeah.
Versus across to the tire. So.
But I really don't know. I really don't know. For that one, I don't know. Yeah, but I don't see how it could be a problem.
If the roots are going down.
Yeah, I don't know. What's another hand?
No, that's
no. Yeah. Yeah. So you see, a question that stumped me. So I have to go and check on that.
Yeah.
Yeah. So then the other method we're looking at is Hügelkultur method. And when we were moving, that's the one method we knew about was the back to Eden, and we knew about this one, the Hügelkultur method. So It's a method of raised bed gardening. We didn't raise our bed, we sunk our bed. So you could either raise it or you could sink it. So I saw that, I'm like, that looks like trouble. I will tell you, that looks like it's just gonna roll down and become a flat surface. So we said we're gonna dig instead. Now digging is more laborious, but that's what we did. So raised bed gardening technique, in which a gardener layers soil, rotten wood, I must emphasize that, rotten wood and other organic matter to form a mound-like garden bed. The term Hügelkultur was coined in 1962 by Hermann Andre. All right, it's a German word that means hill culture or mound culture. So in this method, you stack and part of the picture not there. Okay, so you stack, and that's the picture. That's over time. If you could see the cursor, it starts like this. After 1 month, after 1 year, it looks like this. After more time, I can see it looks, and eventually it becomes wonderful soil. So it's another method. It's called Hügelkultur, and this method provides one of the benefits is aeration, as those rotting wood breaks down. And the good thing about choosing rotting wood is that it would have less of a nitrogen depletion in your soil. But if you have nitrogen depletion, you could plant beans, you could plant beans. Yeah, you could plant beans.
And some plants.
And you could also amend with what's the word, love?
Greens.
Greens or compost yes. Or manure. That's what I wanted to say. So you could put manure in your stacks to make your Hügelkultur. So this is our Hügelkultur story. Because we didn't want the amount, so we dug, let me tell you.
That was a lot of work.
Yeah,
because imagine having to dig, what's the height of that? Like 4 feet?
We went like 2 feet deep. I
2 feet deep holes.
Yeah, because our soil is really bad. It looks nice there, but our soil it wasn't growing anything.
There had no worms in there.
Yeah, it just rained, that's why it looked kind of dark. So you had no worms in it. So I dug away. So what I did, I dug the first row. I put in the wood, the branches, the leaves, the manure, the compost. And then when I dug the second bed, the dirt I took from that bed, I covered the other bed. So when I did the second trench, the dirt in that trench, I covered the first bed. So every bed I would dig after would cover the bed I did before. So then, so that's me. Now, one mistake I made, and I'm still suffering from that now, is some of the wood was too big and some of them were not well rotted enough. But we were still able to grow food in there.
Yeah.
We were still able to grow food in there. So that's the first bed. My pictures kind of mixed up. That's the first bed. And eventually all the beds were done. That was our first house as well that we built from the shop that we had in Castries. And so then I'll dig the next bed. I'll add all the mango leaves from pruning the trees. Sorry, the branches, manure, compost, rotten wood, anything that can decay. I would add it inside of there. Dead animal, I'd add it inside of there. And then I would cover that with the soil. I would still put a little mixture of manure on there, and then I could grow food in it directly. So here's another picture of me adding the manure and the compost. And it doesn't even have to be good compost. That's the other thing too. I want to say, you do not have to be an expert at composting. Even if there are weed seeds in there, all you need to do is be able to gather the nutrients that you need. Don't be worried about greens and browns, especially if you're just starting out. You'll get better in it. You just need to start. That's my advice. You just need to start, and you can learn, and God can teach, and you can continue to read. And trust me, when you made a mistake, it's more memorable than if you read and you never tried it. If you read a book about something and you never tried it, you're not even sure what you know and what you don't know. But when you try it, then you feel like, wait a minute, okay, this is what I did bad. This is what I can do better. So, and after I would put this on here, I explain all that. So that's about it. And this is some of the produce that we made. Except the bread. The bread, yeah, everything that grew from our garden. The bread is there because it came from our mud oven.
Yeah.
We bought the flour. At that time when we just moved, after we did that garden, we were only buying rice, peas, salt and flour, basically.
Yeah.
We're growing
all our grains.
Yeah, we're growing everything.
Everything we liked. Like for me, I love eggplants.
And I love, what do I love?
Okra. So as you can see, the okra is right there.
Okra is like one of the best things God ever made. Let me tell you. I know there are a lot of people that love it.
So yeah, these are the things we grew, and these are things that we grew in the experimental stages as well.
Yes.
So we were not perfect farmers.
And that's not many years in. That's like directly after making the beds. Yeah.
So we see your hand. Go ahead.
Hi. Good night. Good night. Great presentation so far. Pretty much appreciated. Thanks. So my question is based on this Hügelkultur method, right? A friend recommended something to me to try, and I did start in terms of, well, I got it going. She recommended a raised bed, right? But and the reason why I'm bringing it now because it resembles what you're talking about here in terms of the rotten wood, right? So there are a lot of trees that fell on my land, and instead of burning them, I decided to like put them in this little thing. So just an idea of what I'm talking about is like a 10-foot length, 3-foot width, and about a 3.5 height, right?
It has
so
round ends.
Say again?
The ends are kind of round, the bed you're talking about.
Okay, so I haven't barricaded it yet. So that's what I'm coming to talk about now. So my idea was to use half bamboo, so like half your bamboo, and then kind of like make a in out kind of wall thing. So my question is this similar to Hügelkultur, and is it a good idea to go with the bamboo, going around like so?
Yes, it actually is Hügelkultur, and you can use the bamboo. The only thing about the bamboo, you have to let the bamboo die. All bamboo nodes, as long as it's green, the bamboo node is where the plant is. So the bamboo nodes can germinate and grow. So you kind of want to leave the bamboo, let it dry out and die first. We actually did bamboo as well. I love the pictures of it, but we use bamboos as borders. You can use the bamboo, and the bamboo, by stacking the way you're describing, it would allow for some air, but you kind of have to like half cut the bamboo so that they can fit inside of each other. Or they could roll off. Yeah, that's the only other thing. But yes, it is Hügelkultur.
One of our experiences with the bamboo was they were rotting too fast.
Yes.
They were just
So the younger, greener bamboos, which most likely would germinate, they would rot faster. So then, and I love what you're saying, because instead of burning away your nutrients, then you can use the very things that are degrading and cycle those nutrients back in. So that's a wonderful way. The other advice I'd give is to maybe have a chin so that you could cut them in as small pieces as possible to give them more exposure so that they can break down even faster. But the bed only gets better. But eventually the bamboo would rot away. So you have to keep that in mind.
All right, great. Thanks so much, man.
The other thing that we noticed with that particular method that we used, it creates holes. And
air.
Sometimes rodents decide to go in there. So when we find out that they're hole and we block it, that is really good compost that you have in there. So that's the other thing we noticed about with that method.
Oh yeah, I forget to add. So if there's a dead pet or dead rats on property, that's a wonderful place to get rid of them. You add them into the. Don't think there's nothing wrong with that. They're just going back for the cycle of nutrients. All right. So advantage and disadvantages of it saves money for a farmer. It repurposes waste. Well, as a matter of fact, if it can rot, it's not waste. We need to stop seeing things as waste. We need to see them as resources that we need to figure a way to bring them back into our nutrient cycle. All right. Less herbicides, farm can produce higher yields, great aeration, It's a great environment for soil life, increasing beneficial microbes, increase insect support, helps prevent soil erosion because the soil is covered. Downside is equipment costs. That is maybe an axe, a saw, to maybe cut.
And it's quite laborious in the beginning.
Yeah, it's laborious in the beginning, but it is worth it because you do not want to have little labor in, well, average labor the rest of your life. You want, what we thought of is we'll take a lot of labor in the start to have less labor down the line. So we said we'll put in the proper structures, so then it just keeps getting better. All you have to do is plant and harvest.
So with us, we did we did a mix, the Hügelkultur and the lasagna gardening
was on top of it.
So we literally had to grow and build the soil because like I said, we had no worms or anything like that. So the soil only got better. Imagine growing from asphalt basically and having actual,
as you say, that it is possible to break down asphalt using those methods because of all the activity that they happening in there. Long period of time, but it's possible. Downside to that is fields cannot be used for multiple purposes, because if you have your Hügels going this way, you kind of married or to having your beds in that location, because if you move away from that location, you're not on the Hügel anymore. So you have to carefully plan your beds to the place you want them to be long term, the direction you want them to be. And I recommend all beds should be on contour. If you have a bed going down the hill, the water is racing down the hill with all your nutrients the same way. You want to slow them down. That video is there. You can go and check it out on our on the website, water management. So then it's wise to have your beds on contour to harvest rainwater. And by doing that, you would never have reason to change the direction your bed kind of going. Be sure where you want to put your Hügels, because it's a lot of work to get it in, and it's a lot of work to get it out if you plan on doing something else with that area. And you can't build a house over your Hügel bed. No, we can't do that. Yeah, so be very sure where you put in the Hügels. It's possible to have nitrogen depletion because of the amount of wood that is in there, but you companion plant with beans and manure and fish emulsion.
So one of the things we did when we were done with that, we just left the soil and planted beans.
Yeah.
And we just left it for some time with beans. So the ones we were not planting in, we just left with beans on them. And
you may not even have to harvest the beans. You could have the beans grow up to the point where they are actual beans, and before the beans actually mature, you could just chop them and mulch them back in if you don't want beans. But beans are a wonderful way of, instead of adding chemical nitrogen, beans are a wonderful way of adding nitrogen, because the beans plants directly harvest the nitrogen from the air and puts it in the nodes in the roots into the soil. I see a hand. Pretty curious.
Oh yeah, well, you just answered my question in terms of the lifespan of it and the maintenance of it.
It's long term. So
it's a long term plan.
Our beds are actually married to the same spot.
They're married to the same spot.
And what we did too, we agreed that there were our beds were, because it was actually a gently sloping area, and we excavated the area to make sure it was flat.
Yeah, because of the work that we were willing to put in, we were also willing to change the topography of the soil to make it more ideal for rain harvesting. So it was a steeper slope that we had, and we took off the top slope and we added it down in the bottom so we could get a flatter surface. And because we were willing to do that, we did that because we wanted the water to be slow on the soil. Let me tell you. Wanted to slow down the water. We were willing to put in the work initially because we wanted to not have to do the work and gardening all the time. So now I lazy garden now.
Now it's lasagna gardening.
Yeah, now we're lazy for gardening. So yeah, but because we put in the work initially, we can afford to be lazy. Aquaponics, I just added in there. We don't have to go into that because we did a long session on that. Another method I'd say in gardening is square foot gardening. I don't know if anybody has ever heard about that. Oh, my picture is stretched out. Square foot gardening. And it's a more intense kind of gardening where you look at not just the garden bed, but you look at the garden bed per square foot. And the beautiful thing about that method is that there is no wasted space. So within a square foot, I have a picture here. You could have 4 cloves of garlic or 1 clove, 1 okra tree, or you could have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7.
And it also takes into the consideration, 16.
Yes, 16. Yeah.
Also takes into consideration companion planting.
Yes.
So this type of gardening brings in the method of companion planting as well.
Yeah, which we'll get to in a while.
So
what are we doing?
This is something that can be added to your knowledge base as you go. So now, as your soil is well taken care of, then it is more capable of
doing stuff like that.
Yes.
If you have soil that is depleted, then you won't be able to do this kind of intense farming because it can't handle the pressure. Yeah. But when you have wonderful healthy soil, then you could plant more intensely. And that's just a chart to show how much of what can grow in a square foot. So it's possible to have a diverse garden in a small space.
And that is for persons who have very limited land as well. You can grow intensively, but with this method, of course, you have a limited amount of things that you can do in a space.
Now, this brings the idea, which I mentioned, of companion planting. What is companion planting?
Companion planting is basically using the method of relationships, beneficial relationships among plants.
Okay.
So one of the ones that we did was cabbage and marigold, I think.
Yes.
And it reminds us of how the Garden of Eden, maybe that God did it. There were flowers, I'm sure, and there were food, ornamental trees.
To the eyes.
Yes.
And some was for food.
Yes. And let me tell you, the garden with the cabbage and the marigold was so beautiful.
Yeah, the garden looked really nice.
It looked so beautiful with the companion.
Nice orange marigold, yes. So it is believed that growing certain plants, and that's the principle of companion planting, certain plants planted close proximity to each other can help deter pests, can help promote growth, and even improve flavor.
Ooh, so imagine planting onion and garlic by your cabbage.
Yeah.
You think you have to put seasoning in that afterwards?
So you kind of blowing it out. Yeah. She exaggerated a bit, but yes, that's the idea. So then here you see a range of patterns and leaf shapes and colors. So the idea is also that the plants benefit each other, and you could think of the cabbage is more susceptible to pests, but the marigold, the smell of it it suppresses the smell of the cabbage for one, so the pest who finds the cabbage on scent would not be able to find it, and it also masks the shape of the cabbage as well, so the pest who is looking by sight to find the cabbage cannot find it. Yeah, and the bright colors would attract the pests to the flowers instead of to the cabbage. So and marigold is a good example. However, it doesn't always have to be plant and flower. It could be plant and plants. So here we see, for example, carrots. Carrot companion is beans, broccoli, cauliflower, chives, leeks, lettuce, onion, parsley, peas, peppers, rosemary, sage. However, thyme is okay, but tomato and dill would not be good companions for your carrots. I forgot why for a carrot though.
For the carrots, the dill?
Yeah, the dill. It looks a lot though, like the carrot leaf, but I forgot why for the carrot.
One principle that we've learned as well is having your herbs with your short crop helps mask the scent of your your
plants,
your
especially when they're suffering. When the plants are suffering, they give off an odor. They send off signals with that way to tell nature something is wrong, I need pruning, and the insects would come in and prune in your plants. You think the insects are devouring your plants and killing your garden? They actually come in and prune the plant because the plant told them it help. Yeah. Now, if things are really bad, they can kill off the entire plant. Thing, yeah. And I remember Mitchell saying we had mustard. And let me tell you, Mitchell loved the mustard because she used to have sinus problems. Yeah. And the mustard leaves would really help with that. And we harvested so much mustard that in one particular spot. Yeah, that the trees were stressed out. The mustard plant was stressed out. And it got attacked by caterpillars.
But there was the other side of the garden where the mustards were untouched. And then we ask ourselves, what's the difference between that mustard here and the other mustard that is next to it? Yeah. And we saw that then we figured it's because we were over harvesting one plant. Because it had nice leaves, let me tell you. Yeah. Because we're over harvesting that one, we stressed out the plant. So then the pests came. And they actually left after a while. After a while they left and the plant bounced back. Yeah. The plant was able to bounce back. For corn, there's the Three Sisters. It's not there, but Three Sisters is the most popular companion planting. I have to say that. If I talk about companion planting, Three Sisters, where you have a squash, a bean, and the corn. So the corn, let me see if I remember the relationship. The corn stands up tall and provides a trestle for the beans to climb on. The corn is also a heavy feeder. The corn is a heavy feeder, so then the beans provide it the nitrogen that it needs. And I think the flowers of the beans attracts insects to pollinate the corn. I think that's what the relationship is. But it's called Three Sisters. You could check it up in case I didn't remember it well. So yeah. Another companion plant that works really well. We always used to do eggplants and peppers. Yes. Eggplants and peppers. Tomatoes and basil. Yeah, tomatoes and basil. We used to do that a lot. I would call the eggplant and peppers bed. That was my pizza bed. Yeah, that was the pizza bed. That was the pizza bed. That's true. That's true. Everything we had to put in the pizza bed on that bed. So the eggplant, the peppers, the chives, the onion, the parsley, all that was on the pizza bed. So when we go in and make some pizza for the oven, you just go in that bed and you good. I remember that. That was the life. That was the life. So it's always wise for you to check out what goes best, and it really makes your garden look beautiful. Yes, it does. It really makes your garden look beautiful. It does. Do we have time now? Okay, so what we will do, we will go through maybe one or two more methods, and then we will take some questions, and then we of course do our closing exercises. So another method I want to introduce to you guys is called permaculture. Now, the permaculture can take the whole day. Permaculture really comes from the phrase permanent agriculture. So within agriculture is predominantly monocropping, predominantly short-term crops as well, or plants that needs to be taken out so that another plant can replace it. Within permanent, you see, actually, within permaculture, the principle is more of having a forest or growing food that needs very little maintenance. So then, food forest. Yeah, food forest. So instead of having a tree forest, you have a food forest. You could actually hide your food that way. I guess if it's fruiting, that is. So then permaculture is, amongst others, is an approach to land management that adopts agreements observed in flourishing natural ecosystems. So the people that invented it, if you call it Bill Mollison, if I remember the name, I don't remember the names. What's the name of the guy I always watch? Jeff Lawton. Yeah, you could look on those names, you'll get a lot of resources. But they try to mimic the forest. However, they want to mimic the forest with fruit trees and trees that would come back. Annuals, perennials or annuals. Yeah, one of them. All right. So then you try to create an ecosystem with your trees. The words associated with permaculture is regenerative agriculture,
rewilding, community resilience. So I mentioned all that. Yeah. So then the idea came from another pioneer in that would be what's his name again? Masanobu Fukuoka. Yeah. That's from Korea. He invented Jadam natural farming.
That one is one of the new ones that we're looking at.
Yes, One Straw Revolution. There was a guy, his name, well, let me tell you about him. Masanobu Fukuoka, he was either from Korea or Japan, I can't remember, I think it's Japan. And he was growing rice without water, without flooding the fields. He was growing rice without flooding the fields. And what he would do, he would plant, I forget the other, he grew 2 crops, rice and something else, wheat, I think it was. So he would plant the wheat, harvest, while the wheat is getting ready for harvest, he would sow in the rice, they would harvest the wheat, cut the tops of the wheat fields, and then the rice would pop up, and the rotting wheat husk, leaves, what have you, residue would rot away and feed the rice, and he would just repeat the cycle, and he would never have to flood his fields, and he had better results than the flooded rice fields. But you could check it out, One Straw Revolution. You could type that in the chat. You could check it out, One Straw Revolution. So these are some of the pioneers of permaculture.
So that was the Jadam natural.
No, that was permaculture.
Oh, that one was permaculture. Yeah. And then
another method that you can look into is called Korean natural farming, or Jadam. There's actually a book called Jadam. So you can get a book.
One of the things that I like about their method of farming, and like we said, all of the methods that we're going through are methods that when you look at nature,
they copy nature.
They copy nature.
They are organic.
So that is one of the ways that you know which method you can consider. With the Jadam natural farming, one of the things that I love about them is they create their own pesticides. They create their own pesticides and they observe nature.
Yes.
So for example, to find a good pesticide, one of the things that they advise is for you to go in your own local forest or your own local area and find out what herb or what plant do you find that insects do not eat.
Yeah.
Mulch that or make a tea with that. And how about trying to spray it on your
your plant and see what happens. So with them in I think it was Japan, you know, ginkgo was the fruits and the tree that they realized that insects were not attacking at all. As a matter of fact, because of this method, ginkgo kind of became more expensive. So I think it's ginkgo now. I'm so sorry if I said the wrong thing, but my memory, I think is that. But there was a plant, put it that way, in case I'm saying the wrong name of the plant. There was a plant that they noticed that the insects were not attacking at all. So what they did, they took loads of that fruit and leaves, they boiled it, they liquefied the leaves and the beans, they strained it out, and then they cool it and they apply it to the plant. Yes, neem can also do that. That's a good. Yeah, we have, that's our local one, neem. Yes.
Yeah, but the thing about it is, I love their way of
thinking.
Yes. So it teaches you to think for yourself,
yes, and create your own
pesticides and things.
Natural pesticides, that is. So yeah, and then when they applied it to the plant, they noticed that it also helped the plant in its resilience. Now, they're not limited to pesticides. They also make emulsions, fermented plant juice. That's an example of fermented plant juice. And what they do, however, they mix all those nutrients in the water that they harvest, they water their fields. So the only thing is, it can be more on the anaerobic side of things, but because they water it in, then yeah, it's more anaerobic, the processes that they go through. However, a lot of people in America now are taking that method and they kind of Americanizing it. So they bubble it with Like if you have an aquarium, the little pump that aquarium comes with, you could make those teas. You could take the compost as well. That's another way you could do it, make a fertilizer. You could take the compost, mix it in water, strain it, and then you add in the same pump from the same pump for the aquarium, and you'd make a tea with that. By bubbling the air, you cause it to become more aerobic, and you could make a fertilizer that you could spray onto your plant, because the plant can absorb a little bit of nutrients through the leaves, most of it for the roots, and you can water that on. So they use more, sorry.
Yeah, so this is one of the methods that I think allows you to observe nature for yourself and learn what best suits you and your area.
Yeah, there's a book called Jadam. That's the name of the book. You could check on that. That's a book I'm currently reading. It is mind-blowing how different they farm from how conventional farming happens. And it's amazing how creative they are in creating a lot of the solutions. The other thing they do too, they use seawater as well, not in high quantities, but it's believed that the nutrients from the land flushes all the way down to the sea, and eventually you lose a lot of nutrients that way. So they still incorporate some level of seawater in the things that they make. I guess if we have time, I would maybe give an example of IMO, or I could just explain it, love. Yeah, no, I don't have the picture. Okay. So one of the things they do for fertility, I'll just say they make IMOs, that is indigenous microorganisms. So the foundational principle, thank you, that's the thing of that method, is that they believe the microbes does the work. They do not try to bring in as much compost or broken down organic matter. They focus more on the microbes. So they grow microbes and they mix it in their water, and they water the microbes onto the garden. So one of the things they do, they would go and take leaf mold in the forest. The leaf mold would have microbes in it. They would take a cooked potato in a sack, and they would have, so you have the leaf mold in one sack in a bucket of water, and you have the cooked potato in another bucket of water. So the leaf mold, the cooked potato is the food for the microbes that is in the leaf mold. And as they grow, they would make a foam-like substance on the surface of the water. And you know when it's ready, when that foam-like substance starts to, is prevalent, or when it starts to diminish. That means it has the maximum amount of microbes that it can have. Before they start dying, you mix that 10 to 1, and you could water that on your garden. And instead of you adding micronutrients, you put in the microbes that would harvest the nutrients that is locked into the soil, locked in the pH, or they would break down the soil or the stones or what have you, to bring those nutrients to make it available to the plant. That's the foundational principle.
So let me see if we can get that again. So we have,
I said a lot?
Yeah, so we have a bag, a cloth bag most likely, of the dirt that we found in the forest.
Dirt or leaf mold, with dirt.
Yes.
If it has the little white hyphates in it, that's best. Hyphates.
So we take that sack and we
suspend it in water, in a bucket of water.
And then we take the potato,
a cooked potato,
and we suspend it in the same bottle of water. So then the
microbes would migrate into the potato. They would eat it. They would grow. They'd multiply. That would be beneficial microbes. And then you could use that water to water your garden and create the fertility, because you are, instead of giving the food to create the microbe, giving the biome, you could still add biomass, you could still add
your compost.
You could still do that. But the idea is you grow the microbes directly, like you farm in the microbes.
Yeah.
Instead of adding the organic matter so that the microbes can grow, you just grow the microbes yourself.
One of the things that I like about this particular method, you could be adding all of the compost and all of the amendments that you need.
And you could water your garden with that.
And you water your garden with that. So you know you have the microbes to do the work.
Yes.
Or whereas just adding the fertilizer, the compost and stuff, and waiting for the microbes.
Because it would take a long time for them to get there, because these microbes don't move very fast. Because they call microbes
Yeah. So these methods, when you study your area, you study what's available to you. When you combine some of those methods in your garden, you can see some really awesome results.
So I mean, we always scratching the surface on the different methods. I just really more introducing the methods to you. There's a lot more detail that can be gone into. But what I want to do, I want to expose you guys to those methods so that you could actually go and check them out and see what is easiest for you based on your circumstances. So you can grow food and we can get rid of all those chemicals, because the truth is, when we can't buy and sell, we can't buy chemicals. So the earlier we learn to grow food without them, then the better for us and the more useful would be in aiding others. So any questions, guys?
I asked in the chat, what containers are the best? Let me scroll back to it. If some containers are toxic, then what do you suggest other than the wood container for container gardens?
I would use containers that usually have food grade products in them.
Yeah, what could cause the containers to degrade though would be its exposure to light. So then light would be, when the container is exposed to light, that could be more gelatin. The containers is not really a major problem, but what would I recommend, love?
The food grade containers.
You could, the thing is, I didn't put it there because I didn't see that as a major issue too. Yeah, but I don't know.
What we use, some of the containers that we have
use everything.
That's true. We would, whatever that's food grade. So for example, the water barrels.
Yes, the big ones, the 5 gallon ones. Yeah. They have thousands of that in the dump, so we go there, we get them, we cut the top off.
And you could use those.
So
the fact that it had water in it.
We just have to double check that they're BPA free then, right? We have to just check that they're BPA free, because not all water bottles are BPA free.
Yeah.
Okay.
But I personally don't really stress on that either. But yes,
that would be the best principle. Yeah, that is the best thing to use.
Can you suggest so I bought a bunch of heirloom seeds, but I just bought them thinking this is what I would like to grow. But I think one of the things that I'm learning from watching different country living sessions is that you gotta have stuff growing before you get there. You cannot wait to plant. What are some things that I live in the city, I don't have a lot of land. And if I do container gardens, I'm gonna have to do something so that I don't attract, I do have birds, but what do you call it? I don't want to attract rats.
Ooh.
Do you know what I mean? Because I figured they're gonna, I'm worried that they're gonna come and like try to bury in it, or if they smell it, I don't know. But that would be my problem. So I was like, well, maybe I can have some shelving and like put them up higher, but technically rats can climb. I mean, I'm just trying to think my original question as I'm processing why I never grew anything outside was, what are some key things that you suggest we start growing, even if we're not in the country yet, just so that we have it?
There's actually
no limit. Some key things that I live in the Northeast. I live in Maryland, so I recognize everything doesn't grow everywhere, but
spinach can grow very well. I actually know someone in Maryland. She lives in the city as well, and her spinach she has them in pots, and she has them just trestling on somewhere close to her railing. So spinach would do well. And what I would recommend would be to keep away the rats and rodents. You may not be able to necessarily do the composting as much as somebody who actually has the land. And if you would consider that, you'd have to use bins.
Yeah.
So my mom still lives in the city, and she had a composting bin that she used, and she just kept it sealed tightly. So when she needed to air it out, she aired out. But you don't have to do the composting to do it. You can probably just find a location like we used to do. Find a location like the church that has the composting in the yard. You go there.
You the church? Oh yes, it was the church.
You go there. You take your sack of dirt and you go out compost, and you get back home, you fill your stuff.
Yeah.
And so you don't have to go through all of the processes that somebody with the land has to
But the
go
truth is, you can really grow up. You can grow anything in a container. There are people who grow bananas outside of the tropics, inside their homes in containers. So there isn't any limit. But let me see if Ronnie gonna help answer this question.
Hi, Lincoln. I was thinking that that she can make use, if she has like neighbors where she could get the grass and the leaves, that she can do some compost tea that is ready in about like 3 days.
Yeah.
And I guess dispose of the hard material after and use the
Yes. Or you talking about liquid ferment. Liquid ferment you're talking about, where she puts the leaves in the water and then just strain it out.
Yeah, in about 3 days thereabout.
Yeah.
You know, so green together with brown, together with, you know, some other stuff. And also the banana peel as well.
Yes.
She can soak, there's something that she can soak for about 3 days and get rid of the hard material after and use that with her pots. And
that's so true.
And the bananas is a good source of potassium, I think it is. Yeah, the banana is a good source of potassium.
Yeah, so that's a very, very awesome way to solve the getting rid of the composting idea for the rodents.
The thing about the rodents, you have to think of what would attract the rodents. So rodents would be attracted to something that they would find attractive. Maybe root crops they would be attracted to. Parsley. A rodent would not be attracted to parsley. They wouldn't be attracted to
You're not attracted to spinach.
Yeah. So then maybe potatoes and stuff like that, they would be attracted to it. But there are ways to get rid of the rodents themselves. I don't know, but I don't know your situation.
Yeah.
But I get rid of the rodents and I compost them. Right?
Well,
so
compost the rodents.
So I trap them and I kill them and I compost them. Let me say.
Mr. Brent, go ahead.
Yes, hi again. All right, 2 quick questions. One has to do with the website and registering on your website. I think one of the fields there, the last field says event bright order number. So I was kind of confused as to how to go through that.
You can just use 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And you can get through the rest of that.
That was for the earlier registrations.
So those that have the event bright code, they could use it. But we've we could, for those who don't, you could just use 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 and you can access that.
I think I didn't even fill mine and it went through. So
so I removed it as a requirement so that other persons can still register even though they were not registered on Eventbrite.
And another thing too, guys, you can also add the question. So sorry.
That was your first question,
Sorry,
right?
when you're done, I'll ask my second question. Yeah, I had a second question, but you can go ahead.
No, go ahead.
So I answered that. Okay.
Yeah. Oh, I was saying
it's gonna be on something else though.
Yeah, I was saying you could also use the forum to ask your questions as well. I was gonna say that.
Yeah. There's when you get onto the website. So for persons that are just going to be watching the recording, they can use that method as well.
Yeah.
Right. Okay, got you. All right, what's my second question? Which I hope I remember quickly. Okay, good. That's the question. I have been interested in developing some kind of method where I can do my own soil testing, right? And I'm not talking about simple, NPK stuff, because there is value in doing these soil tests, but here locally, I don't even think that it's a service to people who aren't farmers.
Yes, yes. Senator as well. They have no regard for you if you come there as a backyard gardener.
Right.
Yeah.
There is a problem, right? Now, of course, we are very much into the health of soil, what we could do to amend it, etc., etc. So my question is, what is your advice, if you have any at all, in terms of how can one develop their own, maybe extend it to other people, that kind of thing? Do you have any advice or anywhere to turn to?
Okay, I like that question, and my advice would be if you were in the last session where I showed deficiencies, what you can do when you see a deficiency, even before you plant, you could look at the grasses, look at whatever is growing there already, and you could pay attention to the deficiencies, take pictures of them, go online, find out what the deficient in that particular plant looks like. I'll put in the description online. The internet is a wonderful resource, and you could look for leaf or symptoms that look similar to what you're going through, and it could be a very good indicator. May not be 100% like a soil test, but it could be a very indicator of what your deficiency is. And then what you do now, because of that is now your hypothesis. So your hypothesis based on your research is that you're deficient in, say, for example, boron, because you look at the symptoms and it really looks like boron. However, it can be similar to other symptoms. So then what you could do is take a small portion of garden and do a little amendment there to see how the plants react. And if you see they react well, then you know, okay, I'm on the money. If they don't react at all, then you might have to go back to the drawing board to see what the deficiency is. But it's good to not apply your hypothesis. I apply a solution to the entire garden, because you need to verify your suspicions first. So that would be my method. Pay attention to the plants, take a picture of the leaves, reference the internet for the symptoms that you see to find what they were. And even Ronnie, if you remember when you were growing your peppers, there was a point where the leaves were getting these yellow spots in it. That is a deficiency disease. Yeah, remember that time? Yeah, that's a deficiency disease. So you take a picture of it. You could use Google Lens if that could help as well, to then try and figure out what that deficiency is. But the main point is when you're applying your solution, I'm repeating myself for a reason, start with a small piece of garden so you do not damage your entire crop. Start with a small piece, test it out, and then, yeah, that would be my solution.
Yeah, and I'm sure if,
go ahead.
I'm sure if with the aquaponics session that you did, you recognize that persons who do the aquaponics, they're a lot more familiar with the deficiencies, because it happens quite frequent in those systems.
Yeah.
So because there are deficiencies that kind of into the aquaponics system already. So you'd most likely know, okay, within aquaponics, these are the deficiencies that you would have.
Yeah, but most persons, like you say, you could go online and, for example, what I do is in my garden would have a number of plants, but I use the lettuce as the
marker.
As the marker, yes. So I get familiar with the deficiencies that the lettuce would show, and then it would give me an idea. Okay,
that is it.
So I use I'm so familiar with the lettuce. When I see the spots, when I see the shrink in the leaves, when I see the brown or the yellowing, I have an idea of what the deficiency is.
So you do not have to know the deficiency symptoms for all. You just know one. And all right, that's a good. Yeah, I like that. I like that idea. Yes.
One of the things I would add to what you all were saying as well is to pay attention to the weeds.
Oh yes.
There's a particular there's a particular experiment that I did where there was a particular weed, a particular grass in the garden. It's like a purple grass. And what I learned from that particular weed is that it was a deficiency in some
phosphorus, I think it was.
I think phosphorus. I think it was phosphorus. So when I saw that particular grass growing there, I knew that there was a particular deficiency in that particular thing. And one of the things that I noticed is the different places that I went, there was maybe a different type of grass, but the same purplish thing was on it. and there were different types of purplish weeds. And of course, we also saw the deficiency in the corner as well when the leaves started getting the purplish color. So all of those signs for us was, okay, you are deficient in this particular thing. So studying your weeds and maybe doing some research, what is this weed putting into the soil, or what is this weed a sign of, is one way to do a soil test. This is a very long method of a soil test because, like my husband was saying, now you find very little weeds in our garden because little by little, when you put in the things that are missing, the particular weed that came across as a result of that lack no longer comes up.
The only weed we had as of recently was a weed that kind of binds the soil together because the soil was very loose. So we have weeds that bind the soil together. We have weeds that break the soil apart if it's really hard. And we don't have these anymore. So now our soil is soft. So now we have the weeds that bind the soil together. And these have very thick very fibrous roots. So that's the only weeds we have growing there now. And it's kind of having a good time. But what I do though, I pull it out, shake off the roots, and I put it back right there for it to go back into the soil. I don't carry it, I don't compost it. I just put it up, shake it, turn it upside down, put it right back there.
Or put it in the
zero. In the warm tower. Yeah.
The warm tower.
Yeah. I put it right back. That's where it fits.
Explain how to do a microbe tea versus a compost tea.
Yeah. Well, I already did the microbe tea. I kind of spoke about the compost tea as well. So the compost tea is basically taking compost. I have a slide about that. You can jump to that. So I didn't explain compost. I have videos I recorded for my compost. So this is the compost tea here. So you take the compost, the better the compost, the better results. However, don't bust your head, guys.
So the material that you're going to compost.
Just add the materials together. What I advise people to do, even if you do not have the perfect balance between green and brown, let me just say that, just collect the materials. Collect the materials. When you have the perfect balance, you could always take those materials and stack them in the perfect balance. But what you want to do is just collect them. If you want to collect them together or collect them separately, doesn't matter. But when you have the compost, you run it through a sieve. That's for one, to take out the big particles. Then you hydrate it and you would strain out the other particles that is still very small. So you sieve it dry, then you can sieve it wet, or you could just sieve it wet if you want. That's
so basically you take your compost
and you wet it, you hydrate it, and you sieve it out. So then the humus would come through, the microbes would come through, and then to make a tea out of that, you get a aquarium pump or some kind of pump. What the point is to add air to make it aerobic and to cause the microbes to grow. And that tea, you could add it directly on the garden bed if you have not planted anything in it, or you could add it to your water that you're gonna water your garden. 10-to-1. The 10-to-1 really is because you want to spread it out, but you could add it directly. It wouldn't affect the garden bed or the soil. But yeah, that's the basic idea of compost tea. There's comfrey tea as well. That's the word I remember last week. Comfrey, write that down. Comfrey is the best, absolute best companion plant for your garden, because the comfrey has roots that goes deep into the ground. Praise the Lord, I remember the word today. The comfrey has roots that goes deep into the ground. They harvest nutrients from the soil and they put them in the leaves. So all you can do is just cut the leaves, put it in water, make a ferment, like Ronnie was saying earlier. About 3 days, you could take the leaves that didn't decompose, take it out. You could use that water, or do like me, I'm a lazy gardener. So I leave the leaves in there, I take the water, I add more leaves. I just keep adding more leaves, take out the water, put in more water. Yeah, so then that's a liquid ferment. Beg your pardon?
Can you spell or put in the chat?
Comfrey, C-O-M-F-R-E-Y. You can add it there.
Okay, all right, thanks.
If I spell properly, I'm gonna tell you. Yeah, so comfrey. Do I have that? You see, I was adding up some.
Somebody asked, are you familiar with Hügelkultur? Yes, we are. We actually had some demonstration and some pictures.
Yeah, so then there's a picture of a pump putting air into the and the white color you see, the foam that you see on the top means that the compost tea is actually working and the microbes are actually growing. Now, if the microbes, the white stuff start dying out, that means you're going beyond.
You're killing the microbes.
You're kind of starting to kill them now, or they're starving. There's not enough food left for them. So you want to get it at the brink where it has the most of the white stuff. But as soon as you see it going down,
you know you're dying.
It's ready. So you can apply.
To put them in your garden so that they can get the rest of the food that they need. So the difference between the compost tea and the microbe tea is the microbe tea, you're getting a portion of dirt / leaf mold in a cloth sack. You're suspending it in the water and you're basically getting a cooked potato or you're getting microbe food.
So you're feeding it.
Yeah, so you're feeding the microbes. Yeah. But with the compost,
everything is there already. Yeah, the food, everything is there already, because that's the whole point of making the compost. You actually give the microbes the food already. So that's
the difference between.
So if you don't have a compost pile, then you could do the other route of taking a little bit of compost, still using the bubble and everything. And you could still use the air, and you could make a tea that way. And let me tell you, these plants would do well because they get the food directly. It's already in a plant soluble way. Some can be absorbed through the leaf, not much, but most of it can be absorbed through the roots. And you could run it through drip irrigation, which is even the best, which is even better. Yeah.
So, any more questions
before just spray it on? Like
we close? So these are just some fertilizer juices that we were sharing.
So that's one you could do, the comfrey. That's the fermented plant juice. All kind of fertilizer or food supplements. Yeah.
And we do some. The ones my husband does.
I put everything in that. Mangoes. I have the big 50-gallon barrel. I have that. I put everything in that. Let me tell you, when I say everything,
everything that can compost goes into that.
It smells like manure though.
It smells like
cow manure. Yeah, so it's like a biodigester. But let me tell you, I put everything in that.
So then he just strains it out and waters the garden.
What you can do, you could have a tap with a mesh in the bottom of the tank. So the tank you want to use for it, you could have a tap, you could raise the tank, have a pipe in the bottom, like drill a hole and screw in a pipe and fill it on two sides. So then you would put in the material and you could have a mesh on the pipe and you could just open the pipe, fill a bucket, close the pipe and be on your way. So that's a wonderful way to do it. What I use to fill it with water, I use the first flush from our, it's that time? Oh my goodness.
We've been having so much fun.
I don't believe it's that time. So yeah, I use the first flush from our rain harvesting for that purpose. I'm so sorry, guys.
So
I didn't know this was that time.
We have gone way beyond our time. I just noticed it. And so we want to thank everyone for joining us. This is something that we're very passionate about, something that we're excited to start working with on the outpost. So when God told us, like, the first thing I want you to start with on the outpost is the farm. We're like, hip hip hooray, hip hip hooray. So we're quite excited to start working on the farm and doing these, using these methods, and not also using them, but teaching persons to use them as we garden.
Those methods. Yes.
So persons can see that you can have good, great dashing without fertilizer.
You like that part?
Let me tell you, and you can have big, many hands of planting with no fertilizer. You can. You just have to do things.
When we moved to where we live now in Sufra, my father said you would grow nothing there. My uncle said you would grow nothing there. Then he said, you grow cabbage there?
Yeah.
What? You grow what's the name of the Papaya, I never grew papaya.
That not growing there.
That not growing there, yeah. These simple methods can, and my father is an experienced gardener, mind you. He always tell me, Lincoln, you know, just put a little fertilizer when you're starting. I'm like, no. No, I'm willing to make the mistakes. I'm willing to learn it because there's a point where I have no choice but to be able to grow food that way. So I rather learn it now than to try and not do it by then. So yeah, but it's possible.
So thank you so much for joining us this afternoon. We this evening. Feel free to go to the website and view the rest of the seminar, and of course join us tomorrow for the solar session. Right? Woo, woo. All right. So
I'm not doing that one. We have a trained professional electrician coming in. Yeah.
Okay. So let's bow our heads to pray as we close.
I don't pray. Father, I want to thank you for this session. Thank you for the opportunity, Lord, to share and to learn from each other, Lord. We learned a lot as well, even if we were sharing. Lord, we pray that you be with every soul here, Lord. That will be encouraged to move and obey your command, Lord, to move into the country or to start our garden, even where we are, whether we're in the city or not, Lord, that we can learn as much as we can. So when we do make the move, whatever time that you provide, Lord, it will be a move that will bring glory to your name and will not be a move that will make us or your principles or make your principles look bad, Lord. We want to thank you for those opportunities where we get to share with the world, Lord. And pray that your name will be glorified and everyone here will draw closer to you. In just my prayer.
Amen. Amen.
Let it be like.
So thanks once again for joining us, and we will now be sharing our theme song to close.
Oh, so that's the slides.